Hello, welcome to Know About History Channel. Hope you like it. Era 445, 12th of May 1944, R.F. Benson, Oxfordshire. The runway is a strip of darkened concrete sweating under night chill. A photo reconnaissance Spitfire sits light on its wheels, painted a dull blue that disappears against haze. No guns, no armor plate. In the bay behind the pilot are cameras, not ammunition. Large format vertical and oblique lenses mounted like surgical instruments, loaded with long rolls of film that will be useless unless they come back intact. The pilot taxis without lights. He wears no swagger, only the tight, practiced movements of a man who knows he has one defense: altitude, speed, and not being where the enemy expects. When the Merlin opens up, the aircraft accelerates with an empty, stripped-down violence. In seconds, it is airborne, climbing hard into a sky that is already turning grey at the edges. Across the Channel, the German coast is wired, mined, and studied to death. On paper, it is simple. Identify the best beaches, map the Atlantic wall, measure the exits, and land where the defences are weakest. In reality, the problem is not choosing a beach. It is proving you can sustain an army there. That proof does not come from speeches. It comes from silver halide on film, from shadows that reveal a gun pit, from a line of disturbed sand that marks a minefield laid last night, from tyre tracks that show a battalion moved before dawn. The Spitfire levels off high, then higher still, above most flak. At this altitude, the pilot feels cold seep through the cockpit seams and into his fingers. He cannot look down for long. A moment of fixation is how you drift, how you die. He flies a straight, precise run anyway, because the cameras need stability. The shutters begin their mechanical rhythm. Click, 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 each frame a slice of coastline that will be turned into decisions. By the time he turns for home, the German radar net has likely noticed him. Fighters may already be climbing. He does not dogfight, he does not weave. He trusts the engineering, a clean airframe, a high ceiling, a route plan to minimize exposure. Hours later, the war continues in a room that smells of chemicals and damp paper. In a photo interpretation section, analysts lay fresh prints on light tables. They use stereoscopes to turn two flat images into depth, reading a landscape like a mechanical drawing. A bunker is not a rumour here. It is a measured shape, a shadow length, a roof thickness inferred from how light fails to penetrate, and the simple question of whether a tank will sink. From these frames, planners build target folders and beach dossiers. They trace trench lines, count obstacles, and mark each firing slit by angle and arc. They note where a draw widens enough for traffic, where wire has been repaired, where fresh spoil shows a new emplacement. A photograph is not truth forever. It is truth at one moment. So the sorties repeat, again and again, until the coastline stops being a mystery. Invasion begins on paper before it begins now. In late May, the focus tightens. The question is no longer whether the Atlantic Wall exists. It does. The question is how it behaves when nobody is looking. The reconnaissance aircraft change their patterns. Some fly high for wide coverage, others skim lower at oblique angles to pull shadows out of concrete and wire. Sun angle becomes a tool. A bunker that hides at noon betrays itself at dawn. A camouflaged gun pit disappears in cloud and reappears when the tide retreats. In the final days before the invasion, reconnaissance becomes obsessive. Aircraft fly routes that seem redundant, covering the same stretches of coast yet again, because the enemy adapts fastest when he knows time is short. Analysts look for signs of panic or reinforcement, a sudden increase in traffic on a secondary road, fresh tyre marks near a coastal battery, a bridge repaired overnight. These are signals, not noise. Weather complicates everything. Clouds flatten contrast. Rain darkens sand and hides minefields. Wind roughens the sea, changing how obstacles interact with waves. Reconnaissance flights are adjusted to chase breaks in weather, because a single clear run can answer questions that weeks of planning cannot. The pilots fly knowing that the film they bring back may decide whether thousands live or die. The work extends offshore. Low-angle photography captures the tidal flats at different hours. Analysts map how far landing craft will have to cross under fire at each tide state. They calculate how long obstacles remain submerged. They infer currents from foam lines and debris. A beach that is survivable at 1 hour can be lethal 2 hours later. Timing is no longer abstract. It is measured in meters and minutes. Meanwhile, deception overlays reality. Allied planners deliberately feed the Germans a picture of the wrong coast. Reconnaissance supports this too, by confirming where German defences are strengthening in response to false signals. When new bunkers appear near Pas-de-Calais, it is taken as proof that the deception is working. The absence of comparable effort in Normandy becomes meaningful. What the enemy ignores is sometimes more important than what he fortifies. As D-Day approaches, reconnaissance sorties begin to serve a final purpose: confirmation. Nothing fundamental can change now. The beaches are chosen, the plans are printed. What remains is to ensure the enemy has not moved a critical piece into the wrong place. Each successful mission tightens the margin. Each missing aircraft sharpens the anxiety. On the morning of 6th of June 1944, when the first landing craft turned towards shore, the coast ahead is not unknown. It is the most studied strip of land on Earth. Every obstacle, every gun pit, every likely exit has been photographed, measured and argued over. The men going ashore do not know the names of the pilots or the analysts who made that possible. They only know that some paths work and others do not. As the invasion unfolds, reconnaissance does not stop. Aircraft fly through flak and weather to report changes in real time. They track German reserves as they move or fail to move. They confirm when bridges are destroyed and when roads clog. They help commanders decide where to reinforce and where to wait. The invasion is not a single act. It is a process that must be sustained. Seeing remains as vital as shooting. In the aftermath, history condenses the story into images of men on beaches and tanks rolling inland. The work that made those images possible fades into the background. But the engineering truth remains. Before the first soldier stepped onto sand, the war was already being shaped by people who never fired a weapon at the enemy. They flew unarmed aircraft into defended airspace. They trusted cameras and film and interpretation. They reduced a fortress coast to data and then rebuilt it as a plan. They chose where to land, when to land, and how long the enemy would be blind. The beaches of Normandy were not chosen by courage alone. They were chosen by patience, precision, and the relentless act of looking. Along the Normandy coast, the beaches that will later be given simple code names are reduced to numbers. Beach gradients are calculated from shadow lengths and wave patterns. Analysts determine how fast water drains after the tide recedes, because mud kills tanks as effectively as artillery. A beach that looks wide and welcoming at low tide can become a trap if the sand is too soft to bear weight. Film reveals darker bands where vehicles bogged during German exercises. Those marks matter more than slogans. In the same frames, analysts track obstacles. Steel hedgehogs are counted. Belgian gates are mapped and measured. Mines are inferred from regular spacing and disturbed sand. Some obstacles appear overnight, others disappear just as quickly, moved to deceive. Reconnaissance adapts by returning to the same strip of coast on different days at different tides to see what changes and what stays fixed. Static defences can be destroyed. Patterns are harder. Behind the scenes, the interpretation process becomes industrial. Thousands of prints move through hands trained to see what most people miss. Teams specialise. Some look only for artillery, others for roads and exits, others for signs of mobile reserves. Each mark on a map is cross-checked, annotated and revised. Errors are expensive. A misread shadow can send an armoured column into a dead end under fire. As the beach candidates narrow, reconnaissance expands inland. The land behind the sand matters as much as the sand itself. A beach without exits is a cul-de-sac. Cameras track road networks, bridges, rail spurs. They note where hedgerows begin, where fields constrict movement, where a column will be forced to slow. Troop concentrations are watched for days, not hours. A division that appears and vanishes is more dangerous than one that sits in place. German countermeasures intensify. Camouflage improves. Dummy positions multiply. Flak thickens. Losses mount quietly among the reconnaissance units. When a photo aircraft fails to return, the work does not pause. Another sortie fills the gap. The system is designed to absorb loss without losing continuity. Intelligence is cumulative. One missing frame does not break the picture if the rest is intact. By early June, the coast has been photographed so thoroughly that planners can tell which obstacles were placed last night and which last week. They can see tyre tracks from a single truck and distinguish them from the churn of routine traffic. They know which gun crews drill regularly and which positions appear understaffed. The beaches are no longer unknown terrain. They are engineered problems waiting for a solution.